All right, welcome and good morning, everyone. It is 9:02. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk.
Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
We'll ask folks with us to stand if you're both willing and able for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation will be given by Pastor Donna Glotry from St. Paul's United Methodist Church. Pastor, welcome.
Please have a moment of silence with me. Holy One, Creator, Sustainer, Encourager of all that is and will be, we thank you for this weekend where we have been able to celebrate and remind us of the liberties that we enjoy in our nation, and yet we mourn for the lives that were taken by gunshot violence in Highland Park, Illinois yesterday. And we pray for those lives that were shattered by injuries and by fear. Our hearts cry out, how long must this violence take away liberty, safety, security, and welfare? May this be tolerated. But Lord, when we look in our own city, we are thankful that we live here. We are thankful for the commitment of our elected leaders and of our staff to continue building a city that is a place of welcome and nurture for all our citizens, for all of our residents. Today, as this body considers proposals for new initiatives, holding the promise for bettering the community, for developing new ways of growing homegrown businesses, local businesses, training the workforce, of providing needed local services, may you guide and direct the leaders in their deliberations as they carry out their charge on behalf of the many and diverse people who call Wichita home. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. Madam Clerk.
Approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 28th, 2022.
Has every member had a chance to review the minutes, and if so, is there any discussion? If there is no discussion on said minutes, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Tuttle. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote.
Hoheisels.
I think we're missing one. Let the record show that Councilmember Hoheisel has given a yes vote. So having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Proclamation, Christmas in July Awareness Month.
If you're here to receive the proclamation for Christmas in July, please make your way to the front. Proclamation of the City of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870. Whereas, the Salvation Army is the single largest provider of social services of its kind in the United States, arriving in Wichita in 1886 to feed the hungry, clothe the poor, and bring hope to the dispirited. And whereas, the Wichita City Command and its area corps, as part of the Kansas and Western Missouri region, help more than 300,000, providing millions of meals, tens of thousands of nights of shelter, and a wide range of other critical services for the less fortunate each year for our neighbors who have nowhere else to turn for help. And whereas the seasons change, so does the Salvation Army's efforts, providing heat relief with fan distribution, keeping first responders hydrated, missed disaster or fire, to providing our teachers with desperately needed school supplies for our children's classrooms. Whereas community businesses and organizations allow the Salvation Army to use their sites later this year with red kindles in our community. The The Wichita Fire Department continues their 35-year tradition with their summer boot block donation campaign every Saturday in July. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brandon Whipple, Mayor of the City of Wichita, Kansas, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2022 as the Salvation Army's Christmas in July Awareness Month in the City of Wichita, and encourage all citizens to call upon the people of Wichita and to acknowledge the importance of the work of the Salvation Army provides.
Just want to briefly say that we are so grateful to the citizens of Wichita, because it's without you, we would not be able to do what we do each and every day. There are so many families that come to us in need. Sometimes they're in desperation. It's the first time they've been in that situation in their life. But they can come to us, and we will provide them the help that we can provide to get them back on their feet. And we can only do that through the generous donations of Wichita, which you continue to give us, and it's exciting to be part of this city.
Madam Clerk.
Joshua Blick, 2022 Automobilia Moonlight Charity Car Show.
As we get into our the public agenda, please keep in mind that these are for 5 minutes if you are speaking. Please be mindful of the timer. Also, please be respectful of the speaker. Is Mr. Blick here at this time? He is not. So, Madam Clerk.
Sharon O'Neill, beautification of downtown Wichita landscape.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. My name is Sharon O'Neill. I've lived in Wichita most of my life. I lived in College Hill neighborhood for the last 31 years. I'm a retired psychotherapist. I've spent over 40 years in private practice helping people solve their problems. I'm here as a community volunteer. I have been a Sedgwick County Master Gardener for over 20 years. I volunteer with Flowers on Douglas, the Orpheum, and now the Historic Preservation Alliance and Save Century 2. I became involved with Save Century 2 as I love good architecture. I want to thank the city for fixing the sprinkler system, waterfalls, fountains, and dead trees in A. Price Woodard Park. These efforts, along with Lowe's generous donation of $15,000 worth of materials, the hard work of many community volunteers, and Lowe's paying over 20 of their employees a full day's wages, have transformed the beds in A. Price Woodard Park into a relaxing oasis. The Historic Preservation Alliance and Save Century 2 have gotten more donations from individuals and local businesses to plant the beds around Century 2 and the Main Street Library. As you can see, all those in color are all of the beds. There are a lot, and they are very big. We are a small group of volunteers attempting to hand water these beds, and it is overwhelming. I've already gotten offers for more donations for next year, but we cannot continue if we cannot keep these plants and shrubs alive. I'm here to ask the city to repair and turn on the sprinkler systems around Century 2 and the Main Street Library as soon as possible. We need to mulch these beds to moderate soil temperatures, conserve water, and retard weed growth. But the sprinkler systems really need to be repaired prior. Contract the repairs out if necessary to get the sprinklers on ASAP. A. Price Woodard Park was in deplorable shape prior to its transformation, as are many public spaces, and I have brought pictures of the spaces around downtown Wichita. There's dead bushes, dead trees, trash, and weeds. These areas around Intrust Bank Arena, the Wichita Festival, Century 2, Water Walk, and our 3 downtown hotels. Is this really how we want to present Wichita? The city is throwing away every dollar that it directs to visit Wichita if it does not have the will to maintain its public landscape, as people want to visit and live in pretty places. These beds around the Wichita Festival office have evidence of a sprinkler system, and yet are full of dead bushes, trash, and weeds. This is a problem throughout Wichita. I live in College Hill, and so my other pictures are of College Hill, but it's just an example. There are 6 dead street trees in less than 1 mile. 3 are on Circle Drive in front of the College Hill Pool, where many adults and kids are getting in and out of cars throughout the day. And 2 of the dead trees are on the 100 block of North Roosevelt between Blessed Sacrament Church and St. James Episcopal Church, 2 very busy churches with, again, a lot of people and car traffic. It's not if but when someone gets injured by falling branches. Here are some of the many dead trees in College Hill Park. Trees need regular pruning to remain healthy, and yet it does not happen. Wichita needs a fully funded and staffed forestry department to eliminate dead trees and to maintain a healthy tree canopy. If the city maintained its public landscaping, it could use the Main Street Library to attract an out-of-state company with high-paying jobs, as this dramatic architecture would be in high demand as a corporate headquarters. And anyone who has watched the 2-part Ken Burns documentary on Frank Lloyd Wright recognizes Century 2 as a Frank Lloyd Wright design. He did a lot of round buildings with blue roofs and eyebrows in the last 20 years of his career. Wichita has 3 Frank Lloyd Wright buildings: the Allen Lamb House, the Corbin Education Center at WSU, and Century 2. Wichita could coordinate these 3 venues and work with the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation to attract tourists to visit these Wichita buildings. The Historic Preservation Alliance and Safe Century 2 are attempting to assist the city with landscaping around Century 2 and the Main Street Library, but hand watering is extremely difficult, and this summer is predicted to be hotter than normal through August. If the city turns on the sprinkler systems around Century 2 and the Main Street Library, our volunteers could focus on planting, mulching, weeding, and picking up trash. We cannot do it all. We need the city to do its part. It would help to have the police patrol the area, as some of the homeless are scaring some of our volunteers and leaving feces in the area. Some of the nurseries have donated plants such as Treetop and Stutzman's. I cannot follow up if we cannot keep these plants alive. Treetop is currently offering dump truck loads of mulch, but we're waiting on the sprinkler systems to be fixed. It insults local businesses and volunteers for the city to not do its part. I encourage each of you to drive by these areas to see for yourself. Does Wichita want to be known as the city with dead bushes, dead trees, trash, and weeds? Please prioritize landscape maintenance in your budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have these visual aids. Can I hand those to someone?
Madam Clerk.
C.J. Wilson, bringing tourism back to Kansas.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
I passed out a packet, kind of looks like this. We'll go over it today. The Dam Jam is an event that is happening at El Dorado Lake this summer, here in about 3 weeks on July 23rd. The team behind the Dam Jam has one vision, and that's to bring the music back to El Dorado. It is this vision that will shape a festival that brings music lovers, artists, crafters, vendors, and seekers of nature together for 3 fantastic days of sun, fun, inspiration that will keep bringing people back year after year. Our team, on the second page, you can see, is a diversified group of women and men from communities across central Kansas. We range from the ages of 27 to 78 years of age. Our team has minorities, women, men, LGBTQ, and passion to bring people across our state of Kansas together. We have a very simple mission, and that very simple mission is to gather people in Kansas for tourism. To go into that a little bit further, as people wonder, how does a festival create economic benefits to Kansas? Well, currently we don't have an ocean or mountains, so our tourism isn't really high. In fact, we're ranked number 46 in the country. The tourism industry creates 66,000 jobs in Kansas. The state enjoys $11.8 billion in direct and indirect economic output, and $600 saved by Kansas in addition yearly taxes through economic activity generated by tourism. The opportunity, I'm going to give an example, is the 2013 Coachella, one of the largest festivals in the U.S., generated $47.3 million in revenue in 20 minutes, selling out 158,000 tickets, prompting festival goers to expand the festival across 2 whole weekends. Successful festivals can bring in anywhere from 10,000 to 90,000 concert goers in 1 weekend and create 3,000 temporary jobs. A 20 to 30% increase in revenue is experienced by restaurants, hotels, convenience stores, and local businesses during the festival week. And $1.7 billion in advertising dollars are generated through sponsorships and are funneled back into our local economy to businesses that support the infrastructure of that festival. So the festival is situated in El Dorado at the lake next to the dam. It is located right next to the dam. El Dorado offers 8,000 acres of water, 98 miles of shoreline, 17 miles of trails, and full-service marina. Activities include boating, camping, swimming, hiking, biking, and excellent fishing. So pretty much to sum it up, when it comes to a location, we pretty well nailed it. So how can we help? Our biggest goal is to bring tourism to the state of Kansas. Our team is not the same team as before. There was a festival a couple of years ago. After research of that festival, their second year, they sold tickets in 96 cities, 13 states, and 3 countries. Actually, people have gathered the last couple of years during this event without any organization. Over 250 people came to the lake. When we announced our event on February 2nd, in 9 days, we sold out the Walnut River Valley campgrounds, which is over 189 campsites. So it's very exciting to see that. We've also sold hundreds of tickets before we even announced a band. So what our hopes are as a team of individuals, there's 16 of us, and we're 80% women-owned, is to kind of put together a awesome event, which this year is only 12 hours on Saturday as it's used as a fundraiser so that we can bring in larger bands on a larger event for full 3 days in 2023. So many people say, how can we help? Well, it's very simple. Sponsorship, ticket buyers, volunteers, cars for our car show, and just to simply share our mission and know what we're trying to accomplish. I greatly appreciate your time today. You can see on that final page a picture of our team is throughout this package. I've also included a press release so that you kind of know who we're bringing and what's happening on July 23rd, and then sponsorship opportunities as well. What our goal is to try to gather as many Wichita businesses, tourism or not, local events, Interest Arena, Hartman, those type of things, and be able to kind of get those people that come out to El Dorado Lake to again return to us again at another adventure that we may have here locally. So I am CJ Wilson with the Dam Jam. Our company is called A Production Company, LLC, and we are having an event at El Dorado Lake, and we would love to have you guys there, or any type of support you may provide, or even just helping us spread the word of trying to get tourism up in Kansas so we can reap those benefits. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda items 1 through 12.
Has every member had a chance to review the consent agenda, and if so, is there any discussion? If there is no discussion on the consent agenda, then I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Tuttle. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Councilmember Hoheisel, please vote. Thank you. Have received 78 votes. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Healthy Corner Store Initiative Pilot Program.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council.
Good morning.
Brooke Couchock, City Manager's Office, here to talk about the Healthy Corner Store Initiative Pilot Project. So, some background for you. In 2013, the Health and Wellness Coalition published a study titled Wichita Food Deserts, Why We Should Care. And they found wide price disparities with the lowest income zip codes experiencing the highest food prices. They were also able to see that there were 44 square miles of Wichita that were considered food deserts. And this slide kind of shows you, according to the USDA, food desert means a significant number or share of urban residents are more than 1 mile from the nearest supermarket and 10 miles for rural residents. In July 2021, the Save-A-Lot discount grocery store near 13th and Grove permanently closed, exacerbating challenges many residents have accessing healthy foods. In August 2021, New Venture Advisors evaluated potential solutions to food access barriers facing Wichita residents. The recommendations were adopt the recently created City of Wichita Sedgwick County Food System Master Plan, leverage lessons learned from peer cities to create a Healthy Corner Store Initiative pilot program in one of the city's low-income, low-access neighborhoods, and utilize the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, ARPA, and in-state funding sources to support the Healthy Corner Store Initiative and other healthy food access initiatives. The Food System Master Plan, upon nearly a year's worth of community effort, was passed early January 2022 by City Council and in February by the Board of County Commissioners. In May 2022, New Venture Advisors submitted a proposal to assist the city in developing a healthy corner store initiative that would increase access to healthy foods. New Venture Advisors plans to partner with the Food Trust, a Philadelphia-based nonprofit organization that has advised healthy corner store and small store programs throughout the country. New Venture Advisors and the Food Trust would conduct further peer city and program research, convene stakeholders to participate in the planning process, design a pilot Wichita Healthy Corner Store Initiative program, develop an evaluation approach and implementation plan, collaborate with staff to create an ARPA-compliant program budget, and assist staff in soliciting proposals. In addition, New Venture Advisors and the Food Trust would outline key program elements, such as the number and location of stores, store owner training, merchandising and marketing, equipment, consumer education, implementation timeline, and cost. The development and implementation of a Healthy Corner Store initiative would increase resident access to healthy foods and support the food system master plan. As emphasized in this slide, goal 2, improve access to healthy foods. There is no impact to the general fund as a result of this specific action, and the implementation costs of the Healthy Corner Store initiative and related implementation actions are estimated at $49,600. Timing and costs are approximate and will be finalized in a work plan developed with the city at the start of the project. And the Healthy Corner Store Initiative pilot project is an eligible use of ARPA funds. The Law Department has reviewed and approved the proposed contract. The amount to be paid under this contract does not cross the threshold requiring public solicitation. It is recommended that the City Council approve the contract and allocate $1 million in American Rescue Plan Act funding for the Healthy Corner Store initiative. And I believe we have New Venture Advisor staff for questions.
Excellent. Are there any questions for staff? Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two quick questions here. Apparently, we have a steering committee that's going to be overseeing this. Who appoints to the steering committee?
That is a good question. I'm not quite sure what the plan is for that in the future.
Mayor, members of council, we haven't decided that yet because we're not sure what expertise will be necessary. It may be a mix of council members and appointments from organizations in the community that speak to the issue of food, such as the Health and Wellness Coalition.
Okay, and will the steering committee be overseeing any funding expenditures? Will they give the okay for certain projects to be funded, or is this just going to be New Venture Advisors oversees the spending?
The mayor and city council will oversee the expenditure. So the program budget will come to the council for approval before the $1 million is spent.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, and appreciate the presentation, Brooke. My question is along Councilmember Hoheisel. We're saying $1 million in ARPA dollars. Is that up to, if we don't decide to spend all of that, does that then go back to ARPA reallocation? Or, what would be the plan if we decide we don't need to spend all $1 million?
Councilmember, that's exactly right. There would be a recapture and it would go back to the original $5 million ARPA allocation.
Councilmember Ballard.
Thank you, Brooke. I noticed that it says the timing and costs are approximate and will be finalized in the work plan developed with the city. But do you have any idea of when, like a time that this will start?
Yeah, it says that the Healthy Corner Store Initiative pilot project would be implemented in 2023. I believe they will work on the timeline further, and we'll have something to present to you guys.
Okay, I just want to get this going. I just feel like we keep talking about it, and I'm ready for some action. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right, Mayor, we would like to accelerate that. The idea is to get a pilot project created as soon as possible. I think the slowest part of this is on the front end in terms of identifying the appropriate model from successful projects around the country, and then to test that first. So we'll pick, the committee will help us pick one neighborhood or area of the city, and if that works, then we'll replicate it. And that's probably 2023 when you would see it rolled out citywide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Am I right that this is the same group that we had started with when we had our workshop?
Yes.
Okay. So what ability do we have to make sure the assessments of those who apply is accurate? Because I still disagree with the way this group scored Ashley Faust and Donna Pearson McClish. We have two people who've been providing this service. Donna Pearson McClish is able to do all of this now. And Ashley Faust finally has a storefront. She just hasn't opened, but a lot of what she needs is freezers and that type of equipment. I just want to make sure that as this group is working with the local folks who are doing this, there's a fair score. And when I say that, I mean, when I think back, Donna Pearson McClish's score did not reflect that she had a plan that wanted brick and mortar. It just showed that she delivered. And the flip was with Ashley. Ashley had brick and mortar, but she also was going to deliver. None of those scores were in there. And both of those individuals are still needing assistance, and they both could help greatly within the food desert. So I just want to make sure if this is that same group, that there's fair scoring and that people get a fair shot to help solve this challenge.
Vice Mayor Tuttle.
Thank you. I just have a few comments. People probably know this is truly an area of passion for me and something that I've been working on for quite a while. So wanted to just thank Brooke and certainly also Corey and also Assistant Manager Dante Martin, who've been kind of part of the team working on this. I also want to thank the Health and Wellness Coalition of Wichita, whose focus is health eating and physical activity for every generation living in the greater Wichita area. They really were the genesis and the catalyst for this, and then also the Food Policy Committee. But also my colleagues at City Council and County Commission, just for having the patience and the vision to pass the master food plan. And I just think this makes sense to be the next step. I think, and I've been intimately involved with this process, sustainability is vital and one of the things that we'll really focus on. So highly recommending not funding food or funding staff, because those would not be sustainable after the ARPA dollars are expended. So just thank you to everyone who's been involved in this process and look forward to the next steps. Thank you.
I see no more speakers on the list, therefore I would request that the Vice Mayor retain the floor for a motion.
Thank you. I would enthusiastically move.
Oh, thank you, guys. Yes, my apologies, Vice Mayor. I was premature with that. We forgot to go out to the public, or I forgot to go out to the public and ensure that we had public feedback on this. Thank you to my colleagues to my left. But of course, we'll get back to the motion afterwards. So, staff, thank you. Is there any input from the public on this particular item? I need more coffee today. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning to the council and to all the staff. I'm Donna Pearson McClish with Common Ground Producers and Growers, and we have been in our community as an urban farm since 1968, and we have a mobile market that's been operating since 2014. I just learned of the meeting this morning, so I don't have any prepared remarks, but I'll just give you a brief overview. We have, I'll just go to my concern. We're meeting, and we're not feeding. We're not solving the problem. We have 67214, which is the poorest zip code in Kansas, according to the United Way of the Plains. we are ramping up our mobile market service. And we have submitted proposals, different proposals, to feed. Now we know the next step is to implement the community markets, the neighborhood community markets. And we understand from previous history that if there is no buy-in in the community, those markets are not successful. So my question to the council is, how many studies, meetings, initiatives before the people in our communities are being fed properly? And according to Vice Mayor Tuttle, that in this ARPA funds, if I understand, there's no money for food or staff. That may not be a sustainable issue. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you don't have money for food or staff, how are you going to move the food? How are you going to take care of the people that need the food? The other concern I have is that who's going to be a part of this steering committee? You've got a plan here from an outside source. How many community people have you involved in the pre-planning and the planning stage and then the implementation stage? I'm just concerned because I see the need every day. We have expanded our market. We're seeing the need more and more. People are now having to make a decision between gas and food. So I would encourage the council to take a strong look at the plan, to encourage the community to be involved, but let's develop a plan where people can start to get food in these communities while you're doing the planning, while you're doing the case studies, while you're doing all of this. Let's develop a plan that is intermediary, that fills in the gap until you get all of this planning done. $1 million during this time is not a lot of money when you're talking about food. And our policy at Common Ground is that food should not be a profit issue. It should be a policy issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Further input from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Vice Mayor Tuttle.
Thank you. And Donna, thank you for being here today and for your comments. And it's been a pleasure to work with you in the community. So I really appreciate you being here on such a short notice. And I would be happy to meet with you and have further discussion about your questions. I wrote down a few notes and I'll just try and address them now, but we can have a deeper conversation. We aren't going to be doing any studies. This is just the next step in the process of making sure that we have a fair and transparent process so that food deserts across the city can be addressed. There's food deserts in every one of our council member districts, so we want to make sure that every entity has an opportunity to apply for the funding. I also wanted to let you know, you asked who has been involved in this process. The Health and Wellness Coalition of Wichita have been intricately involved in every stage of this process, including this step right now. So we know that community involvement has been included. Regarding the sustainability issue, that's something that I was pretty adamant about because the ARPA funding is very limited and in time frame, not only in quantity, but also in time frame. And so, if we have this next step in the funding, not having food or staff is because when the funding's gone, the funding's gone. And so, trying to think of creative ways to get food to people and people to food, but not funding food or staff for the sustainability reason. So, Donna, we can have a further conversation, but just thought I'd kind of give a high-level overview of some of those issues that you so eloquently brought to our attention. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Also, I'm in support of this, but I think if we are able to get any of the dollar stores to the table, I know that one of our District 1 residents did get through to one of the dollar stores on the corporate level, that there be some type of conversation about providing this service beyond ARPA. So don't just do it because there's money there, but afterwards people still will be hungry and still need food, and I'd hate to see that when the ARPA dollars dry up in 2 or 3 years, that then those disappear as well. And I know our local providers wouldn't do that, but I do have those concerns, so hopefully we can work that out with them if they do agree to the service.
Further discussion from the bench? Seeing none, the chair will again recognize Vice Mayor Tuttle for a motion on this item.
And sorry, I jumped the gun before. I was just so excited. So once again, I will enthusiastically move that the City Council approve the contract and allocate $1 million in American Rescue Plan Act funding for the Healthy Corner Store initiative.
I'll second the motion. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast your vote. Who are we missing? We have 6 yea votes.
It clicked on and then off.
Clicked on and off. Okay.
Yeah.
May the record reflect that there was 7 yea votes.
Yeah.
Man, people are slow after 4th of July holiday. That's okay, though. We're going to warm up. Madam Clerk.
Appointment of Commission of Electors to recommended revised City Council district boundaries.
Good morning.
Good morning. Scott Wadle from the Planning Department. This is a first step, but an important step. The recommended action for this is to appoint a commission of electors for the purpose of starting up the redistricting. Redistricting for the City Council is set in the Charter Ordinance 173. It occurs every 10 years, and the members of the commission are council appointed. And their goal is to establish council districts where there's no more than 5% deviation for population among those districts. And the goal of this is to have this all completed so that the City Council can take action by the end of the year, so December 31st. This process, although it's spelled out every 10 years, we're able to use this 2020 census data, which we recently acquired, to look at the population of the different council districts. Here's a bar graph that you can see. District 2 and District 3 are the ones that I'd focus your attention on, because when we look at this graph here, or this table here, you can see that they have greater than 5% deviation from the rest of the council districts. So one is higher and one is lower. So in terms of the process, what we're asking today again is for you to form the commission by making appointments. Following that, then we will have a series of meetings with the commission, develop some different scenarios, make a final recommendation to the council, and then the council will have an opportunity to look at it, provide comment, make any revisions that are necessary, and then we would do another round of public input by taking it out to the district advisory boards. So following that, then the goal is to bring it back to you again with plenty of time for you to approve it by the end of the year. Some things to consider, things to keep in mind. One of them is election precincts. We don't want to split an election precinct, so that will be something that the commission will be looking at. We also want to make sure that council districts are reasonably compact. We want to ensure integrity of cohesiveness of the districts, avoid using partisan information in this process. Also, again, the 5%, no more than 5% deviation. And we want to also consider the future in terms of where growth is occurring. So a couple of maps here to bring these points to illustrate them. So election precincts are something that will be looked at. Here's a map of those overlaid over the current council districts. This process, by the way, the county is working on this process. They anticipate having either drafts or final ones by the end of this week. And that has been an issue in the past, and we're very fortunate that we're on schedule with that. We also have neighborhood associations and HOAs that we'll ask them to be mindful of. As well as, again, this is the map from the comprehensive plan showing future employment growth areas and future residential growth areas. So here's a map with those overlaid over the existing council districts. So the action today, again, is relatively modest, but it's an important one, which is to appoint the commission of electors. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? See none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there input from the public on this item? See none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. I guess my question is, this item on the agenda is a recognition that we have to appoint members to this. Is this the appropriate time to appoint members, or should we wait until appointment?
Good question, Mayor. It was anticipated that you would create the commission with this motion, and then under council items at the end of the agenda, make your appointments when you make other appointments.
That's what I was wondering. Thank you for that clarification. So if there's no further discussion, then again, we will vote on this item. If it passes at the end of under appointments is when we'll actually make the appointments to this commission, so long as this item passes. So with that, I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to appoint the Commission of Electors.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded by Vice Mayor Tuttle. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast their vote. Have received 7 yea votes. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Bleckley Drive Improvement Project.
Good morning, Mayor.
Morning.
Members of Wichita City Council. For the record, Don Henry, Public Works and Utilities. The item before you is a recommendation to authorize the budget for completion of the concept design phase of the Bleckley Drive drainage improvements. As you're already aware, Bleckley Drive provides substantial drainage pathway for stormwater from roughly 13th Street North southward down to Kellogg. There's a remarkable amount of water that travels this pathway, especially during a designed storm event of a 100-year rain event. Floodwaters can exceed 5 feet in depth. Currents are swift, and on occasion, cars that get into the water here that left parked along the street can actually be washed away. And there are issues with assistance from Wichita Fire Department assisting people out of those waters. We do experience nuisance street flooding in different areas all across the city. We have some neighborhoods in the Calfskin Creek watershed and an area of Murdoch and Wabash where we have some extreme flooding concerns. But Bleckley Drive experiences the most extreme flooding in Wichita and has remained at the top of the list in terms of priority. Funding to move forward with this project has been the block in order to get this done, but the implementation of a base rate fee for the stormwater utility in 2017 has allowed us to cover the needs for renewal and replacement in the stormwater utility, fund the needs of the big ditch in terms of the type of CIP improvements that we need to have the ongoing certification of the levees. But we do still have a small funding gap for Bleckley, and a modest increase to the base rate could close that gap. Staff met with neighborhood residents in March and April of this year, engaged them to obtain feedback, and postcards were mailed to 347 addresses. This included homes, 2 schools in the area, a number of businesses. And the outcome of that meeting is a strong sentiment in favor of a modest increase to the stormwater base rate, as well as the established phased-in approach. Past work on this project included substantial modeling with the consultant to understand the hydraulics and behavior of the drainage through the Bleckley drain. A high-level concept design and cost estimate was completed after this work in 2018 for the proposed improvements. A phased-in approach for a combination of stormwater retention, upsized storm sewers, and box culverts, as well as improvements to existing drainage channels, was developed. These improvements would work together to actually provide dry streets north of Douglas to 13th and decrease the flooding down to Waterman to the point that where those streets would become passable. So it would provide remarkable improvement for those areas. It's important to note that the bottom, what we call the bottom end of the drain, from Waterman to Kellogg would remain a challenge, and there still would be significant street flooding in that area. It's a small portion of the street. There are 16 residences associated with that area. And what we would like to do is, through the completion of the concept design, is take a look at what opportunities we have there and what options we would have to mitigate those most severe hazards there. If we did take a look in the initial modeling at what it would look like to open the drainage up to have the same type of outcome for that area, and that could escalate the cost of this project to north of $100 million. And so it's really not feasible to make the type of improvements underneath Kellogg that would provide the same amount of relief. In light of recent cost inflation in markets and labor, we'd like to move forward at this time with additional work to button up the concept design and get refined cost estimates. We would issue an RFQ, and the work would include concept design review, scheduling, and cost estimate refinement. Target for completion for this work would be first quarter of 2023. And we would refine the concept and modeling that was developed in 2018, evaluate the proposed routing and feasibility of right-of-way impacts, including conflicts with public utilities and franchise utilities. Due to the scope and magnitude of the work that's going to be done here, we want to make sure that we understand all of the details on the front end of this project, because any small impacts could substantially impact the cost of the project. We'll also take the time to look at the opportunities for dry detention in areas of Claude-Lamb Park, engage with the park board, and then visit with the contractor community to gain a good understanding of the constructability and what the schedule and cost impacts would be due to current markets and material and labor. We want to look at what we can do on the front end of this project, both in terms of phasing and front end effort to reduce the schedule on the project, and then come back to council either in the second quarter of 2023 or the end of the first quarter, and provide the final concept design, the cost refinement, and then a recommendation for the base rate adjustment. And then following that work, as with other projects, we would look to move forward with final design, bids, and construction according to the established project delivery method and schedules. The current adopted capital improvement program includes combined funding in the amount of $6,375,000 in 2022 and 2023 for the design, right-of-way acquisition, and start of construction. The source of this funding is 100% from the Stormwater Utility Fund. At this time, staff would like to request $500,000 in funds for completion of the project refinement work and concept design delivery. And at this time, I'd like to make the recommendation to approve the concept design budget, adopt the resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures. And with that, I'll stand for any questions that you might have.
Are there questions for staff? See none. Thank you. Is there input from the public on this item? See none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there further discussion on this item? Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to say thanks to Don and the Public Works team for that public engagement. I also had some additional feedback of support. I think the word finally was used several times by some folks. And the only real concern was just travel down those streets during construction, which I know you all can work out. But everyone that I talked to was excited that this is finally getting addressed. So just definitely want to say appreciate that engagement piece.
Councilmember Blubaugh.
I want to echo Councilmember Johnson's as well, because, I know as a real estate agent over the last 20 years, we were always scared to show houses down Bleckley because we pretty much knew what it was going to be like with all the water. So this is long overdue, and I'm glad to see it's getting addressed. So thank you.
Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate this project. I used to live right off of Harding, so right behind there, and get flooded out once or twice a year. But I just want to also say that I'm looking forward to, after this project is done, that we can start addressing other nuisance flooding areas around the city, because Lord knows we have plenty of them in the 3rd District as well. So I'm glad to see this going.
Is there further discussion? If there's no further discussion, then I'll make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the concept design budget, adopt the resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Lawn care equipment rebate pilot program.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, Penny Feist, Public Works and Utilities. Here this morning to present a proposed pilot program that would provide a rebate for lawn care equipment that is either battery powered or electric powered. And so we'll start by saying, why would the city consider that? And that's because since 1972, the city has administered an air quality program that is funded by a grant through KDHE and matching funds from the city. The goal of this program is to ensure that our city and the surrounding areas maintain compliance with ozone standards that are set by the EPA. We do this primarily through education outreach and the implementation of programming. We know that about 95% of the ozone that's measured in our area is actually transported from other areas, but of that's within our control. We know that about 30% is contributed from non-road mobile sources, which is primarily lawn equipment. And a typical gas lawnmower is estimated to produce about 6 times the amount of emissions as the average passenger vehicle. So when we're thinking about ways that we can address that, how we can improve our air quality, we wanted to target that section, that contribution from the lawn care equipment. So we've proposed a $50 rebate to individuals who trade out their current combustion equipment with electric or battery powered equipment instead. So this would apply to mowers, leaf blowers, trimmers, and edgers. The program has been similarly fashioned around the conservation program that we do for our water devices, so it's similar in a lot of ways. But because this is not related to the water fund, instead of being a credit to the water account, it would be a check to the approved applicant. So the anticipated impact would be to reduce the emissions from that type of lawn equipment and also assess community interest. We'd be able to measure the estimated impact of trading from a combustion mower or lawn care equipment to electric or battery powered. We've allocated $10,000 of grant funding from our current air quality program, which would supply funds for about 200 rebates, or exactly 200 rebates. We've established partnerships with local recyclers who can verify that the old equipment has been disposed, and we'll promote this through our typical social media channels as well as home improvement stores. If approved, applications would be accepted beginning tomorrow. This has been reviewed by the Sustainability Integration Board, who has signaled their approval and recommends City Council's approval as well. And the recommended action is that City Council approve the lawn care equipment rebate program as a pilot for 2022. And I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Is that $50 rebate per piece of equipment or just per individual?
Per piece of equipment, and each household or property address would be allowed 2.
Okay. And what if they are, I know the slide said trading in, but let's say they don't have any equipment now, but they want to go buy electric mowers and stuff like that. Do they qualify?
That's the unfortunate piece of it. We talked to our partners at KDHE and EPA, and they required that it be a 2-part process. So purchase the electric or battery powered and recycle the combustion to ensure that we're getting those type of equipment off of the street. But I had the same concern, right? What if you're a new owner or tenant and you want to start with electric? But unfortunately, that's not something we were able to offer.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification.
Yep.
Further questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you. Input from the public on this item. Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Further discussion on this item. Well, I just want to thank the Sustainability Board for reviewing this and passing this forward. This is not only good for the ozone, but I think good for the economy and good for just our efforts as a city when it comes to being a more sustainable, responsible city. So with that, if there is no further discussion, then I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the pilot program. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Tuttle. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. All right. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Patrol East Police Station Construction Manager at Risk.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Ben Nelson, Public Works Utilities for the record. This item carries the final set of approvals that are required to proceed with construction of a replacement police station to serve the Patrol East Bureau. We're going to be recommending today a contract with a construction firm through a CMAR, Construction Manager at Risk approach, an amendment to our design services agreement to incorporate a public art component, and to initiate the remaining funds. So I'll cover an overview of the project, its current status, the proposed funding mix, as well as the selection details of the construction company that we're recommending today. Start with an overview of the project. This was originally approved in April of 2019. That followed a conceptual needs analysis that had previously been done with the Wichita Police Department staff. The current facility, our current Patrol East Station, is just north of Kellogg and Edgemore. It was constructed in 1989. It is the oldest of our police substations, and it currently houses about 3 times as many staff as what the facility was originally designed to handle. The new facility will alleviate those space constraints and will be centrally located to provide optimum response times throughout the East Bureau. In terms of its current design and the location of the new facility, last year you approved land acquisition to site this facility at the southeast corner of Lincoln and Pinecrest. That's directly adjacent to the USD 259 Administrative Center. Old Southeast High School basically is what this is next to. It will sit on a 5-acre site, and the building will be a little bit more than 25,000 square feet. We, on the slide in front of you, have a conceptual design and layout at this stage of the design process. We would envision public parking in the north of the facility, 2 access points in and out onto Lincoln, as well as secured parking for police, patrol, and command staff in the back of the facility. Talk next about the project delivery, the construction and design process we're utilizing for this. This was previously approved under Charter Ordinance 228 to use a construction manager at risk. Again, we refer to that as a CMAR, where a design firm works with a construction manager, a general contractor, construction firm, to provide value engineering savings and ideas to optimize building functionality. They work together in collaboration in order to minimize cost, improve building functionality, and result in something you've heard a lot of, guaranteed maximum price, a GMP for short, so that we have cost certainty going into the main part of the construction schedule. In this project, we are bringing the construction manager at risk firm on board at the 50% design stage. You previously approved a contract with GLMV in December of 2019 to be the architect for this project. They have gotten it to the 50% design stage. That triggered the CMAR selection process. So we, several months ago, initiated a request for proposals utilizing the selection criteria that were previously approved under Charter Ordinance 228. That selection process has yielded a staff screening and selection committee review of 6 different proposals that were submitted by general contractors proposing to be our CMAR construction company. The standard staff screening selection committee met. They reviewed those 6 proposals, shortlisted it to 3 firms that were brought in for interviews. Following the interview stage and as a result of the interviews and the review of those proposals, McCown Gordon is the recommended CMAR construction company. They had the lowest GMP proposed in their proposal of the 6 firms. They also provided a pretty strong list of qualifications that included, I believe it was 35 different public safety projects they had constructed. They provided 4 project examples of where the EBE, DBE participation rate. We're at between 11% and 29%. And they also detailed some value engineering savings ideas that were preliminary, of course, but had already been thinking about a process for that they would work with GLMV to get us to a point where we've gone through a value engineering process in this as well. If approved, the contract with McCown Gordon would have a GMP, a not-to-exceed price of $8,840,000. That's the main part of the project budget, covers all the construction. We have other components to this. The Design Council, subsequent to the project's initiation, designated this as a special considerations project, and CIP funding was included last year to make this a public art, or to include a public art component. So that's part of this project cost summary. We also have the design fees to GLMV, furniture, fixtures, equipment, all the normal things that go into a facilities project. And so the total project cost is $10,579,200. The recommended action today covers 2 contract approvals and then initiation of funding. The 2 contracts we're recommending approval on is the negotiated contract with McCown Gordon, again, not to exceed GMP $8,840,000, and then an addendum to the GLMV architecture contract so that they can manage the public art component. Those 2 things will get us to the point where we can build this facility and to include the necessary art aesthetics as well. In terms of funding, we have $1 million currently in the budget of previously approved general obligation funds. We also have $375,000 budgeted in general obligation or GO funds for public art. The remaining $9,204,200 we are recommending to be fully funded with ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act funds. The CIP includes a $3 million portion for this funding along with ARPA, but in consultation with the finance department, we would like to spend that money sooner rather than later since this project's teed up, and to spend through that here in the next year. It's recommended that the ARPA cover the remaining costs, and I will also add that I believe this was consistent with the conceptual ARPA spending plan that was shared by finance staff with all of you during the May budget retreat. So this is something that's been updated in the most recent estimates that you've seen. To close, we are recommending a contract from McCown Gordon Construction, an addendum to the GLMV architecture contract, initiation of the remaining funds, and then there's also an amended bonding resolution to make sure that we have a bonding resolution on file to cover the GO side of this. Thank you for considering these actions, and I'll stand for questions.
Questions for staff? Councilmember Fry.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation, Ben. Has the square footage of this facility grown since we approved it back in 2019?
No, it's
the same
substantially
size?
the same, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. In the same vein, have we skimmed on any plans for anything with a substation or with a station? Have there been cutbacks in, any infrastructure or anything that they had planned that they feel like would be necessary?
No, there haven't been any reductions in scope for this. This was, I believe it was back in 2017, the police department, looking at their future needs, had kind of developed some concepts about what this facility should look like. That was refined after in 2019 and into 2020 to get to the 50% design stage. Then we took a step back to make sure we had it on the right site, went through a land acquisition process, but during no time there did we scale back the scope of this. So this is meeting the needs of the police department that they've expressed through the 50% design stage.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Buba.
Thanks, Mayor. I know we did the land acquisition about a year ago, $218,000. Remind me of that lot size again.
It's a 5-acre site that we purchased.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Further questions for staff? See none. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll open up to the public for input on this item. Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there further discussion on this item? Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just want to say good work on this. Looking forward to seeing this done. I heard a lot of complaints about constraints in the current facility. Is there going to be a plaque that says a gift from District 1 on there?
You can make that in the motion if you want.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Further discussion? If there's no further discussion, the chair recognizes Councilmember Hoheisel as this resides in District 3.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the contract with McCown Gordon Construction, approve the addendum to the existing GLMV contract, approve initiation of additional funds, adopt the amended bonding resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures.
I'll second the motion. Motion is made and seconded. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. Have received 78 votes. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Golf Board of Governors.
Mayor, members of the council, I'm here to speak to you today about the creation of a Golf Board of Governors.
So we need you to state your name and the...
Bob Layton, City Manager. Thank you. Reside at City Hall, it seems like. Earlier this year, the council elected to continue our golf operation as a publicly operated entity or utility, and also authorized us to hire a golf director. I'm happy to say that person is now on board, started a few weeks ago. And during that council discussion of that issue, you also suggested that we create a different governance structure. And so we're bringing to you today a group which would be known as the Golf Board of Governors. It would replace the Golf Advisory Committee, which was created by the council in 2012. Just a reminder, the members of that committee were appointed by the Park Board, and there was a Park Board member that also served as a liaison between the Golf Advisory Committee and the Park Board. The recommendation we're bringing forward today would dissolve the Golf Advisory Committee and replace it with an autonomous or a more independent group known as the Golf Board of Governors. Under the recommendation, there would be 7 voting members of the Golf Board. They would consist of 4 members from the golf courses themselves. They would be nominated by the Men's and Women's Club for each club, or each course, excuse me. They do not need to be members of the Men's or Women's Club, just simply well acquainted with the individual course that they'd be representing. And then there would be 3 at-large representatives, one that would have a food and beverage management background, one that would have a merchandising and retail or retail background, and then one that would have some knowledge of golf, park, and recreation operations or activities as a result of having an extensive background in that area. Since the Park Board owns or controls the land for the golf courses, they would have an ex officio member that would serve or attend all the Golf Board of Governors meetings. And then, of course, the golf director would not only serve as an ex officio member, but would serve as the staff representative and would report to the Golf Board of Governors in terms of making recommendations regarding a number of areas. I want to cover those areas with you now. Excuse me. Before I get to that, just a reminder that the appointment of these representatives would be by the mayor and city council, and they would report directly to the council. They'd be responsible for establishing policy and conducting financial oversight for our golf operations, and would work directly with the director of golf. Here are the duties of the recommended duties for the Golf Board of Governors. They would be responsible for approving all greens fees, cart rental fees, driving range fees, and all other fees and charges at the courses. They would prepare an annual operating budget and an annual capital improvement program, and those would come to the city council for final approval. They'd be responsible for approving membership categories and the associated fee schedule with those categories, establishing all the policies and procedures as presented by the director of golf. They'd also approve a merchandising plan, a customer service plan, sales and marketing plan, and a player development program. They would report to the council annually, but also submit performance reports on a quarterly basis. The Board of Governors would be responsible for, as I said, for approving the fees, and the idea is to remain as a golf enterprise fund, meaning that they would, their responsibility and direction from the council would be to maintain an operating budget that is balanced, and that the fees generated by the system would fund the operations and hopefully the capital expenses. The Law Department has been involved in the preparation of the ordinance to create the Golf Advisory Committee. And so it's recommended that you go ahead, the Golf Board of Governors. It's recommended that you create the Golf Board of Governors and dissolve the Golf Advisory Committee and place the proposed ordinance on first reading. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Vice Mayor Tuttle.
Thank you, Bob, for the presentation. I appreciate the information. I just had one question about the duties of the Golf Board of Governors. The one that kind of maybe caught me off guard a little bit is this is a 7-member board and then 2 ex officio members. The preparation of an annual operating budget, recognizing the financial requirements of an enterprise fund. I'm surprised that they would be preparing the budget and not approving a budget. I mean, can you just tell me a little bit about? I think it would be pretty hard for 7 community members to come to consensus on our budget process. If you could just speak to that.
It's probably no different than what is done with the Park Board. The staff would prepare recommendations or a recommended budget. Then it would be up to the board to make determination on the appropriateness of that budget and then pass their recommendations on to the council, who ultimately approves it.
And that's just wanted to make sure staff's going to be involved in the process. Because when I first read it just said preparation of an annual budget, I thought, okay, that could be a little, okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Yep, thank you.
Councilmember Blubois.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and I was just trying to make sure the council still has the final oversight, or has anything changed from that to now?
Yes, the group will be a little more independent. I think where it changes the most is that the Board of Governors would be responsible for approving all the fees, and those would not come to the council. However, you would have ultimate financial oversight by approval of their budget.
And no council member appointees,
That's not in this no, that was not in the original recommendation.
Councilmember Ballard.
Mayor, thank you, Bob, for the presentation. Was it considered when you were deciding who was going to be on the board to maybe have someone from like turf management or like with a financial background to help look over some of the?
We looked at a lot of different sets of qualifications and came down to these. I don't know that there's any magic in that, in those backgrounds, other than during the discussion earlier this year, there was a lot of concern about food and beverage operations and also about merchandising, and that's why those 2 specific ones are in there.
Okay, that was my next question: is why is one of the at-large members drawn from the retail community? Just because that is the primary responsibility of the golf pro. So with the city only getting 5% and the golf pro or the the manager of the golf course, getting 95%, like that's kind of his job already. You know what I mean?
I do understand that. I'm not sure what the final where we'll be a year from now in terms of how retailing and merchandising will be handled at the courses. That'll be up to the director and the Board of Governors.
Okay, and my other question is, what is the process, and I apologize if you already mentioned this, what is the process for advancing names for consideration for the 3 at-large positions?
That would be up to the council to determine how you want to do that, whether you want the mayor to coordinate that, whether you submit those names to the mayor and then he would advance those. That's really, I didn't have a process established for how the council would handle the 7.
Okay, excellent. And then my last question is, Jesse, thank you for being here. I don't know if anybody has met our new director, but thank you for being here. Is the new director playing a leadership role in constructing the golf division budget for the upcoming year?
Yes, he will.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Bob, I asked you this privately, but just for the public record, if somebody were to nominate or suggest someone for the Golf Board of Governors who is a city employee, could they serve on that?
They could not.
Okay. And then I just wanted to say I'm glad to see this. I appreciate Councilmember Fry's suggestion. I think this is a good way to go compared to the Golf Advisory Committee. So definitely supportive.
Further questions for staff? Seeing none. Go ahead and open it up for the public for public input. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Dale Goter, District 6, and an avid golfer. Been here many times before, and I'm first want to thank you for your action previously in derailing the privatization model and going this direction and creating this great opportunity. Councilmember Fry, I know you voted against that, but thank you for raising this issue of the bureaucratic mess we had in place, and this is a big step. This is a big deal what you're doing today, creating this board. It puts in the past a lot of the problems we've had needs to be considered. I would suggest, and if this comes from conversations with others internally and externally, swapping that retail position out and having a turf management position there instead. The turf management folks have been left out of this discussion throughout this long process, and they are vital to the operation. I'd leave that in the hands of the new director. I know he understands all this, and we're putting a lot of confidence in his ability to make this work, and he's going to have the full support of us public golfers who have been at war with the city over this for far too long. I would ask that there be some consideration for the representation of women and minorities on this. The minority population is active in the golf community, and in these times, it's important that you recognize that going forward. You would not want a 7-member of white golfers telling everybody what to do. That just doesn't work anymore. So there needs to be that has to be factored in there in some fashion. Perhaps that's where the council's role in picking somebody weighs in. That can evolve as it goes forward. But again, I mean, this is a big moment. We hope to quit complaining about this and just be on board with the new director. Things are going great at the golf courses. They're packed. The courses are in really good shape. There's some work that needs to be done. The money is there now. But the component of the financial oversight is something that will evolve from this board. I think that will be different from before. The park board was never engaged in budgeting in any fashion. I just closed by, I've watched Botanica over the years, and it's just an amazing facility. And there's no reason that the Golf Enterprise Fund can't be similar in its impact on the community. It's a matter of recognizing it as a valuable asset it is to our community. The city of Tulsa in the last few months had a big deal announcement. The mayor came forward. They are putting $1 million into their public golf system. And they are up front saying this is because golf is an essential quality of life element in their community, and they're all in. I just hope we have that same mindset going forward. Again, thank you for what you've done and for creating this opportunity, and we look forward to being totally supportive of it being successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Further input from the public on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Further discussion on this item? If there is no further discussion, the chair recognizes Councilmember Johnson, as this does fall within 3 districts, but the first district falls in is District 1. So Councilmember Johnson for a motion.
Thanks, Mayor. I would move that the City Council approve the creation of the Golf Board of Governors and the dissolution of the Golf Advisory Committee, place the proposed ordinance on the first reading, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Councilmember Bluboff for a second. Motion has been made and then seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Have received 7 yea votes. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, Workforce Development and Small Business Development Grants, Round 2.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council members. Nicole Babcock from the Department of Finance.
Morning.
All right, today I'll start off going over a brief background of the ARPA and then over the grant program. And then I'll get into the committee's recommendations for round 2. The City Council approved $10 million in workforce and small business development grants in December of 2021 and authorized staff to begin round one. Round one was brought for City Council approval in April of 2022, and the City Council awarded $6.3 million to 14 organizations for 15 programs. And it also authorized staff to begin the round two program for the remaining funds of the $10 million. Oops, there we go. And then a revised scope I would like to mention was approved for round two. So the scope between round one and round two was slightly different. And this was done to further define the program to provide more clarification and hopefully make it limit it to only eligible applicants applying. I'll go briefly over this revised scope just to remind everybody. Workforce development proposals were to develop a program to provide workforce readiness to individuals currently unemployed or underemployed. And workforce readiness was defined as including scholarships, apprenticeships, or pre-apprenticeships opportunities, and the purchase of equipment, software, or other such technology for skills development. Costs that were not eligible were premium or increased pay for existing staff, coaching or mentoring, child care assistance, wages and benefits for training of existing staff, and marketing or recruiting costs. The small business development proposals were to develop programs to address the financial challenges caused by the pandemic to allow small businesses to rebound from the pandemic. And this was to be in the form of services, grants, and or loans to small businesses other than the application organization in the city of Wichita. And ineligible costs are premium or increased pay for existing staff, coaching, mentoring, and child care assistance. The committee, which was comprised of members of City Manager's Office, Finance, and Law, reviewed all the applications to determine which would be scored. There were 23 applications received. There were 13 for workforce development and 10 for small business. 9 applications were deemed ineligible and not scored because the application was either incomplete or the project did not meet the scope. So the 14 remaining applications were then scored by the committee and further evaluated. Part of that evaluation included a cost-benefit analysis for certain applications. For those that were not scored, there were 5 workforce development and 4 small business. Next, the committee determined a cutoff point based on the scoring of those 14 applications. And that was 70 for workforce development and 60 for small business. Small business was lower as we wanted to put a higher preference on it because it was awarded less in round one. 9 applications made it past the scoring cutoff, and they were then evaluated with a cost-benefit analysis, which included looking at what costs were eligible and how many individuals or businesses were reached and how much the cost per individual or business reached was, to look at a return on investment. As a result of that, 7 of the applications moved forward for recommended approval. There were 2 for small business, or 2 for workforce development and 5 for small business. And so finally, these 7 applications were further reviewed, looking at the program viability, timeline, and then recommended funding, all the while keeping in mind the funds that the committee had available for round 2. As a result of this, the committee recommends awarding nearly $3.6 million for 7 applications, which would leave approximately $56,500 as contingency. The contingency is left over for unforeseen circumstances that may come up in any of the organizations that were awarded, maybe that would put their program viability at risk, or if an awardee doesn't spend all of their funds, it would add to the amount that we would have to reallocate to a viable program. So for the 7 that were recommended, there's 2 workforce development ones totaling $1.1 million and 5 small business development totaling $2.4 million. And this lists out the 2 applications for workforce development recommended awards. There's one for Workforce Alliance of South Central Kansas in the amount of approximately $705,000, and one for Envision for approximately $441,000. There were 5 small business ones, and they're each listed here, and they ranged between just under $20,000 to just over $1 million. Next, I'll go over the due diligence that the committee performed for each of these recommended applications. The recommended applicants were all vetted using TrueView, so they did background checks, making sure there was no liens or default debt. And as a result of that, there was no follow-up needed for any of the 7 recommended applicant organizations. The committee also did a subrecipient risk analysis, which basically helped determine whether they were a high or low risk for the city and determine the frequency of our monitoring. And then staff drafted agreements for each applicant, including the scope of services, performance measures, and financial reporting. And finally, I'd just like to give a combined grant award overview for the Workforce Development and Small Business Development Grant Program. Including round 1 and round 2, there will be 15 applications for 14 organizations for workforce development, totaling about $6.7 million. And there will be 7 applications for or projects for small business development, totaling approximately $3.2 million. And then the contingency funds brings us up to the total authorized $10 million. It is recommended that the City Council approve the round 2 grant awards totaling $3,583,063. And I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? Vice Mayor Tuttle.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for the presentation and all your work on this. And this can be a question for you or maybe Bob. I asked it back in April when we made the first approval of funds. What will be the way that information is brought back to the council of the progress, success stories, kind of a summary of the evaluation? And I asked it before, but just to refresh my memory and for the community, just so we can see what result and what action has come from the funds that have been allocated. Thank you.
Yep. I know part of it is that we have been trying to update the ARPA website on the city's website, and we could make sure to update that periodically. And then also, I don't know, Bob, if you...
The agencies will be required to report to us, and when we receive those results, we can post them, the results on the ARPA website, as well as make them available in a periodic report to the council, if that's what you wish.
I think that would be great, just so that we have some success stories and then also lessons learned for potential other funding, but other projects and other ways to collaborate with the community. So thank you.
Yep, definitely. Thank you, Councilman Tuttle. We have actually received a couple of the monthly reporters already. We'll be receiving from round 1 the quarterlies here in July, so for reporters.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I have a couple of comments. I just wanted to pick up on what Nikki shared. I think it's important to note that the council is living up to its commitment to get money out into the local economy to help small businesses that were negatively hurt by COVID, and to create job opportunities, and that's what you're doing in the workforce development category. And this is, I think, exactly what ARPA dollars were anticipated to be used for, and we tried to move as quickly as we could. I want to thank staff for all of their work on reviewing these applications. And then finally, I just wanted to mention something. Councilmember Blubaugh on a few occasions has asked about accountability. Section E of each of the grant or each of the funding agreements has the performance standards, and that is how we will measure the activities and the success or effectiveness of the agencies when they report back to us and when we give an annual report back to the council. So that should be, if you're looking for that information for each of these programs, you can find it in that part of the contract. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions for staff? See none. Thank you. We'll open up to the public for discussion about this item. If there's no public discussion, we'll bring the discussion back to the bench. Is there further discussion on this? I also just want to thank staff for their work with this. I know it's been tedious to go through these applications and to identify programs that meet both small business growth and development and also workforce/job training. I think, from my understanding, we might be the only city in Kansas that has dedicated American Rescue Plan funds to actually get back into our community, to the organizations that do these type of programs. And I think that should be really just celebrated because of the work of our staff and the direction that this council has decided to go with these funds. So look forward to hearing not just the success stories of the nonprofit organizations who will receive these funds, but also to see the success with the impact that these programs have in the lives of individuals within Wichita. So with that, I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the second round of workforce development and small business development grants and authorize necessary signatures and authorize the committee to use the remaining funds as a contingency to resolve any situation and project continually that may arise. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by Vice Mayor Tuttle. Clerk will open a roll. Members will cast their vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Veterans Ride Free.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Nathaniel Hinkle with Wichita Transit. I'm here to talk about an ongoing pilot program, Veterans Ride Free. Recognizing challenges that veterans face in adjusting to civilian life after military service, the Dole VA and the United Way approached Wichita Transit in 2019, wanting to eliminate transportation as a barrier for veterans. In July of 2020, a 2-year pilot project began offering free rides to veterans. The program has been funded at $10,000 per year by the Dole VA and the United Way of the Plains during this 2-year pilot. Parties agreed to evaluate the pilot program based on the actual number of rides provided to veterans and fund the ongoing program accordingly. The program was an instant success with utilization exceeding all expectations. Since the start of the program, more than 75,000 free trips have been provided to veterans. Monthly ridership has been tracked throughout the program, averaging a 3.6 monthly growth rate over the past 2 years. The most recent quarterly average is nearly 4,000 rides per month. Stop requests at the VA Medical Center have increased by 120% in the past 2 years, just one indicator that the veterans are getting better access to daily needs. The VA United Way have many personal stories of how the program has made a positive difference in the lives of veterans served, and representatives of those organizations are here to provide comment on those. Following the success of the pilot project, all organizations desire that the Veterans Ride Free pilot project continues to be an ongoing program offering. The VA and United Way have committed to fund the program at $20,000 per year, with each organization contributing $10,000 per year. The Law Department has reviewed and approved a memorandum agreement between the parties. It is recommended that the council approve the MOU and authorize necessary signatures. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, we'll first open up to questions for staff, and then we'll have public input. So with that, Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate this program. Unfortunately, transportation is a barrier for many people in improving their lives, and I'm grateful to see that we are able to work our way around this, especially with the people who have served our country. Do we come close to exhausting this fund? Or what happens when the funding runs out? Is there a backstop? Does the city step up to help cover any of the costs once these grants run out?
Right now, the project has been funded just by a fixed amount by the VA and United Way. It's been an agreed amount So to provide ongoing services does not increase our cost whatsoever with transit. These are services that we already have on the street. So right now there's no concern of exhausting any funds.
Okay, and how well is this advertised to veterans within our community as well? Is it just strictly through the VA or?
No, we have our own efforts as well. There's brochures and flyers. We have a bus that is partially wrapped with information. And should this continue, we certainly look to increase knowledge of that through different organizations that serve veterans in the community.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Blubaugh.
Thank you, Mayor. Will the county issued photo veterans discount card work for the program?
Right now, we are only offering rights for approved IDs that are for veterans. The concern with the county card is that it is also for active duty, which would greatly expand the program offering. So as it stands right now, we're looking to accept the current IDs that are for past serving veterans.
Okay, so it's really for active.
I'm sorry?
So it's really not for active duty then?
That's correct.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just one quick question. Some people don't tell the truth about their being a veteran. So what is the way that you'll be able to check to see if this person is a veteran?
Sure. We do have listed IDs that are accepted. One of those is the VA medical card that is obtained directly from the VA that verifies veteran service. Another is Kansas ID or driver's license that can have a veteran printed on the card, where at the time they get that license, they're required to show past service paperwork, DD 214, things like that. Another is an actual retired ID issued from the military service. So those are right now the primary methods that are highly vetted to make sure that they're authentic.
Okay. Will that be a part of the advertisement as we promote this?
Yes, and that information is currently in a brochure that we will refresh if this is continued.
Okay. Well, just like Councilmember Hoheisel, just want to say I appreciate this. This is a great thing to do for our veterans. So
thank you.
Further questions for staff? See none. Thank you. We'll open up for public input at this time.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Matt Lowe, and I'm with United Way of the Plains. And I just want to start about thanking the city for piloting this program over the last 2 years. For the last several years, I've had the opportunity to work with our community's continuum of care, which is aimed at ending homelessness in our community. One of our priorities that we set several years ago was to end veteran homelessness as a priority. This program, this Veterans Ride Free program, has been key to enabling us to reach a place of functional zero, as we have shelters downtown, we have the VA on the east side, we have housing on the west side. Programs like Veterans Ride Free have given the veterans in our community access to not just health care, food, employment, and a variety of other services to enable them to achieve a sense of normalcy in the community. And so with that, I'll just share one story that kind of came to mind as I looked over several, and I believe that my partner from the VA is going to come and share some as well. But I came across this one story about this guy named Eddie. He's a married father of 2 minor children, one of which has special needs. Eddie has a service-connected mental illness that he sometimes struggles to manage independently. Eddie obtained employment as a maintenance worker in a downtown apartment complex and is a sole income provider for his family. Eddie relies on the Veterans Ride for Free program to use the bus to get to and from his job, which is on the opposite side of town. Eddie sometimes struggles with social interactions and concentration, which makes maintaining employment a challenge. His current employers are flexible with his mental health and are patient with him when he struggles with symptoms at work, and allow him time off to attend behavioral health appointments, which he uses this program to get back and forth for. Eddie was recently promoted to a new position with the same employer that now pays him more than he has ever earned outside of the Army. By eliminating transportation as a barrier, the Veterans Ride for Free program enabled Eddie and his family to become more financially stable and secure, which significantly reduces their risk of becoming homeless again. He's also used the Veterans Ride for Free program to attend and graduate from Wichita Technical Institute with a HVAC certification, which further, it enables his ability to maintain stability in our community. So with that being said, I really appreciate your consideration of this program, and thank you for your time.
Of course. Further input from the public? Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. My name is Misty Lester, and I am the Chief of Social Work at Robert J. Dole VA Medical Center. As a social worker in the medical profession for the past 20 years or so, I can tell you that the biggest barrier for individual success is access to reliable transportation. Veterans and the city of Wichita are no exception to that truth. Through the Veterans Ride Free program, not only have Wichita's veterans had access to exceptional routine medical care, they have completed cancer treatments, they have attended substance abuse treatment, they have been able to see their mental health care providers. But the benefits of the program only start there. Countless veterans have been able to attend training, to obtain and maintain employment, to go grocery shopping, to take their laundry to the laundromat, and to participate in activities and events across Wichita. By utilizing the Veterans Ride Free program, they are positively impacting not only their financial status, but they're improving their socialization and putting dollars right back in to Wichita's community. I recently asked some of the social workers who work at the VA if they could give me some stories of veterans who have been successful because of this program. Within approximately 3 minutes, I had over 30 stories. That's just the tip of the iceberg. As you've seen, so many veterans have been successful because of the program. Mark described the Veterans Ride Free program as life-saving. He rides the bus to the grocery store because he lives in a food desert and cannot walk very far. He enjoys tinkering and electronics and building things. However, he couldn't get to local markets or other types of locally owned businesses in order to pick up the parts and pieces he needed for tinkering. He uses the bus to access those places at this time, which not only helps him with the activities that he enjoys, but helps him to socialize and again, put money into the pockets of those from whom he obtains services. There's a veteran who's been homeless for 30 years. He's been from city to city, across the state and across the nation. In the past 30 years, he's experienced extreme disconnect from society as a homeless veteran. When he arrived in Wichita and began to use the Veterans Ride Free program pilot, it has not only helped him gain access to the needed resources to find housing, but he has in fact been welcomed back to society. The partnership has allowed this veteran to attend cancer treatments, mental health appointments, to go to grocery stores, and go to a banking institution for the first time in over 20 years. He has on display in his apartment a portrait of himself with his family that he had not seen in over 20 years. The Veterans Ride Free program allowed him to reunite with those family members. Without this program, it's likely that the same cycle of homelessness would have happened here in Wichita. However, now he is working and he is successful because this program was available to him. Thank you.
Thank you. Further input from the public on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring the discussion back to the bench. Vice Mayor Tuttle.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to thank the United Way of the Plains and the Dole VA for your partnership on this project. It would not be able to come to fruition without your generous contribution. I also want to thank Director Mike Tan in Transit, who himself is a veteran, and appreciate your willing to work on this project and to make it available for those who have served our country honorably. I'm a member of the Greater Wichita Area Veterans Advisory Board, and I'm on the Employment Subcommittee, and this is an integral part of employment. I'm the medical component, the getting to food, all of that, but for our veterans to be able to get to work and to be contributing active members of society that they want to be is just essential. So I think this is an example of just a great project and a great public-private partnership. So thank you for your support, and thank you to Transit and Director Tan.
Further discussion? All right, if there's no further discussion, then I would just also like to thank the VA hospital and also our friends over the United Way for allowing us to continue this program. It's always great when a pilot program proves to be successful, but I think this program has exceeded all of our expectations. With 75,000 rides provided to veterans throughout our community over the last 2 years, that's a huge success. So with that, we look forward to continuing this and to grow it and to hopefully figure out other ways that we can serve our veteran community here in Wichita. So with that, I'll make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the memorandum agreement and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Mayor Tuttle. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast their vote. Have received 7 yea votes. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
PUD 22-10, zone change request in the city from SF5 single-family residential to PUD planned unit development to permit office and duplex development on vacant land surrounding a church generally located on the west side of North Mays Road and within 1/4 mile south of West 21st Street North.
Morning.
Good morning. Scott Wadle from the Planning Department. So this item is being presented today because there are valid protests against the application. As you've heard, the applicant is requesting rezoning from SF5 single family to PUD planned unit development, which is custom zoning. In terms of the property, the subject property is generally located southwest of the intersection of 21st Street and Mays Road. It is about 33 acres in size and is currently developed with a church, daycare, and associated parking, as you can see in the aerial here. In terms of the request is to rezone again to PUD, planned unit development, which is custom zoning. The applicant is requesting the rezoning in order to sell a portion of the property for development as office and residential. The residential development is anticipated to be duplexes. The staff report for this case provides additional detail about a variety of items. Those include setbacks and density, parking and traffic, and screening and landscaping. In terms of the context, properties to the north are zoned LC, limited commercial, and GC, general commercial. All of them are within a CUP, a community unit plan, and developed with an assortment of commercial uses. Properties to the east across Mays Road are zoned SF5 single family and NO neighborhood office. The SF5 zone properties include single family dwellings and 2 places of worship. The NO zoned property is developed with an insurance office. Properties to the south are zoned NO, neighborhood office, SF5 single family, and PUD planned unit development. They're developed with a variety of medical offices, single family dwellings, and a commercial business which includes outdoor storage and vehicle storage yard. Properties to the west are zoned SF5 single family residential and are developed with single family dwellings. In terms of reviews for this case, on June 2nd, the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission held the public hearing for this item and ultimately approved it 11-0, so unanimously, subject to the staff recommendation with an additional requirement of a cross-lot access agreement, and that is because there's a large private drive on the property that will provide access to the multiple parcels. Multiple members of the public spoke during this presentation, and a number of them were in opposition. On June 6th, the District Advisory Board reviewed the application. The vote of the DAB was tied, 5-5 with 1 abstention, effectively no recommendation. Again, multiple members of the public spoke at that presentation. Multiple protest petitions were received against this case. Many were outside the 200-foot protest area. Those within the protest area totaled 8.5% of the protest area, did not exceed the state threshold of 20%. Therefore, this request can be approved with a simple majority, 4 of 7 votes. In terms of the recommended action, it is recommended the City Council adopt the findings of the MAPC and approve the requested zone change place the ordinance on the first reading, authorize the necessary signatures, and instruct the city clerk to publish the ordinance after approval on a second reading. Again, this would require 4 of 7 votes. In terms of alternatives, there are 2 listed in the staff report. First is to override the MAPC recommendation, provide alternative findings, and deny the zone change. That would require 5 of 7 votes. Or you can always return the case to the MAPC for additional consideration, which would require 4 of 7. So with that, I'll take you through some of the graphics and images, and then we'll stand for questions. So here's the site. You can see it outlined in red. Here's the zoning map. You can see the majority of the zoning around it is SF5 with commercial located to the north. Here's the map from the comprehensive plan showing commercial is the recommendation plus new employment. Here's the proposed PUD. So you can see that there are 4 parcels identified on that and the configuration of the proposed duplexes. Here's the protest area map. You can see, again, the ones in red were the valid protests that were submitted within the protest area, and blue are the ones that were outside. You can see also that it was just above 8% of the protest area. Here's some photos from the area. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
All right, questions for staff? See none. Thank you. We'll bring discussion to the bench. Is there discussion on these items or this item? If there is no discussion, Chair recognizes Councilmember Fry as this resides in District 5.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation, Scott. I did meet with both the applicant and their agent as well as the neighbors in the area to kind of go over the issues. I understand traffic is a concern. Having that cross-lot access is key for the development activity. I did ask our Public Works to take another look at the Westport and Mays Road intersection to see if maybe there could be a light justified. It's been a long time since that intersection was redone, and it's probably well past its time for review. But with that all being said, I'm happy to make the motion that we adopt the findings of the MAPC and approve the requested zone change, place the ordinance on first reading, authorize the necessary signatures, and instruct the city clerk to publish the ordinance after approval on second reading.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by Vice Mayor Tuttle. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast their vote. I received 7 yea votes. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
PUD 2022-11, zone change request in the city from SF5 single-family residential to PUD planned unit development for multifamily development on property located on the south side of North McLean Boulevard and 1/2 mile west of North Seneca Street between North Vine and North Fern Avenues.
Welcome back.
Thanks. Scott Wadle again from the Planning Department. This case is also being presented to you because there were valid protests against the application. The applicant is requesting a rezoning from SF5 to planned unit development, which again is custom zoning. In terms of the property is generally located at McLean, along McLean between Vine and Fern. Subject site is just over 1 acre in size and is currently undeveloped. The property is owned by the city of Wichita and is under contract for sale to the applicant. The property is located within the Delano neighborhood overlay, which has exterior design requirements. In terms of the request is to rezone it, the property to PUD. The applicant is requesting rezoning in order to develop it for multifamily housing. A staff report for this case provides additional details about development standards and density, parking and sidewalks, screening and landscaping, and signs and architectural controls for the proposed application. In terms of context, property to the south and east are zoned SF5 single family and developed with single family dwellings. On the south side of West St. Louis, there are instances of TF3, two-family residential zoning within 1 block of this site. Property to the west across North Vine Avenue is Zone GO General Office and developed with a chiropractic clinic and associated parking. And property to the north across McLean Avenue is the Arkansas River and bike paths. In terms of review, on June 2nd, the MAPC, Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, held the public hearing for this item and voted to approve the application 10-1, subject to staff recommendations. Several members of the public spoke at this hearing. On June 15th, District Advisory Board 6 reviewed the application, voted to approve it 6-0, subject to staff recommendations. Again, one member of the public spoke at that meeting. Several protests were received against the application, totaling 30.14% of the protest area. This exceeds the 20% threshold. Therefore, the request requires a supermajority or 6 of 7 votes in order to be approved. In terms of action, council action is recommended the City Council adopt the findings of the MAPC and approve the requested zone change, place the ordinance on the first reading, authorize the necessary signatures, and instruct the clerk to publish the ordinance after approval of the second reading, would require 6 of 7 votes. The alternatives listed in the staff report include overriding the MAPC and denying the application would require 5 of 7 votes, or returning it to the MAPC for additional consideration, again, a simple majority. With that, I'll take you through some of the images. So you can see the application area here outlined in red. Here's the zoning map, and you see the hash marks again indicating the Delano neighborhood overlay. This is the future land use concept map from the Delano neighborhood plan, showing it for residential use. This is from the comprehensive plan, showing residential use with a little bit of park and open space identified. This is the map from the PUD that was submitted as part of the application. There you can see the residential developments along with the parking is proposed. Here's the protest area map, again showing over 20%, so about 30% of the protest area with valid protests. And here are photos from the site and surrounding area. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
All right, questions for staff. I'll just ask one question and then pass it on to the next person on the list. But 30.05% seems like a pretty high protest percentage. Am I wrong by saying that this might be the highest percentage of protests that we've seen over the last couple of years?
Well, I think there's actually been a number that have been higher than that. A notable one was the case in College Hill, where it was significantly higher.
Okay, thank you. It just stuck out that it seemed like one of the higher ones, so probably at least one of the top 3 since my tenure. Go ahead.
We can go back and look if you'd like us to look through the statistics on that.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Scott, I think all of us probably received several emails from the folks who didn't want this, citing view of McLean and the river, but to me this looks like just an extension of the neighborhood. Am I missing something with, I guess, what I've read in some of the emails? Have you heard any other more specific complaint about this other than putting more homes in the area?
You know, I think in general, some of the things that we've heard have dealt with increased traffic in the neighborhood. And this is some of the information in the staff report summarized from the MAPC meetings and DAB meetings, but increased traffic in the neighborhood, traffic safety concerns about the maneuver of getting onto McLean from Vine. Also, rents and compared to existing residential in the area. And then also open space and the trees. And in terms of the open space and the trees, that there was a significant amount of discussion that's taken place on that, and the staff report includes requirements not only for the typical landscaping, but to a higher degree of landscaping, 1.5 times in some instances what would normally be required for a city zone case of similar nature. as well as trees planted along McLean, which we have not done for other cases, but we felt that this one was unique in the circumstances and really helped to address some of those community needs.
Awesome. So you feel like a lot of those concerns have been addressed with this plan?
You know, and about the traffic, so I think that the landscaping in many ways have been addressed. I think part of the challenge that you're going to have is this is infill development, and so by its very nature, you're developing a piece of property. I think the contrast to that is if you don't have development that takes places in walkable environments, that you will see development on the edges, because we see a housing market where there's intense pressure for more housing units. And so it's a question of where would you prefer to have those. And in this environment, it helps to contribute to a more walkable and vibrant neighborhood. But I know that context is, in many ways, is very significant in many different ways. So there's advantages and disadvantages. But I think in terms of landscaping, we've addressed that. But also with traffic, we've talked with engineering about this, and we do not anticipate, or they don't anticipate, that there will be a significant difference in terms of that it will create more hazardous traffic movements, that it will create a substantial amount of traffic that would have a noticeable impact on the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Further questions for staff? See none. Thank you. We'll bring discussion to the bench. So discussion on this item. If there is no discussion, the chair recognizes Councilmember Ballard as this item falls into District 6.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to defer the matter until August 2nd, the August 2nd City Council meeting, to allow me additional time to review.
Motion has been made. I'll second the motion. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast their vote. I've received 78 votes. That motion does pass. Thank you, Scott. Madam Clerk.
Approval of travel for Mayor Brandon Whipple to attend the Farnborough Air Show, July 16th through 24th, 2022 in London, England.
So long as my passport gets here in time. And just want to give a shout out to Senator Moran's office for assisting me with the passport. So hopefully it does get here in time. So discussion about the item, Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Is this one way?
Dun-dun-dun.
I won the office pool. Thank you for asking.
All right, further discussion about this item. If there's no further discussion, then I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the travel and expenditure.
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Tuttle. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Have received 7 yea votes. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Council member appointments and comments.
All right, let's start off with appointments. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you. I'd like to appoint Lamont Anderson to the Commission of Electors.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to appoint Joseph Dozier to the Commission of Electors.
Vice Mayor Tuttle.
I would like to appoint Patrick Penn to the Commission of Electors.
Councilmember Blubaugh.
I'd like to appoint John Whitmer to the Board of the Redistricting Commissioners, and I'd like to also appoint Nate Schwedall to the Police and Fire Retirement Board.
Councilmember Ballard.
Thank you. I'd like to appoint Javen Gonzalez for the Commission of Electors.
And I will appoint Marcy Gregory to chair the Commission of Electors. So I make a motion to accept the appointees.
Second. Oh, wait.
Motion has been made and then seconded. Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I can't support appointing John Whitmer. I'd like to make a substitute motion to appoint everyone but John Whitmer.
I'll second that motion. Substitute motion has been made and seconded. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast their vote.
Have received 5 yea votes to 2 nay votes. That motion does pass. On council appointments, back on the item, which is comments, unless there's any other appointments. Vice Mayor Tuttle.
So you made a substitute motion. I just want to make sure I understand. Do we need to go back and re-vote then for?
Substitute motion passed, so all the appointees with the exception of John Whitmer has passed. So we can go for more appointees at this point or get into comments.
Yeah, that's the way I understand it. We can make it.
Right, we can.
Right. Yep.
We're still on comments and appointments. So.
I'm just looking for a point of clarification.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just trying to understand. I thought this was similar to whenever we do our consent, we pull an item off, we can vote again. Is that not correct?
You can make a motion for your person to have, let me just ask legal, because my understanding, the substitute motion accepted all the appointees. The only person left to appoint to this committee is Councilman Bluebox, because his appointee didn't get the included in the last motion, and he can make an appointment now. Is that correct?
The ordinance says we have to have electors from all 7 districts.
Okay.
So yes, he could make another motion.
Okay. So Councilman Bluebox, if you'd like to make an appointment.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to appoint John Whitmer to the redistricting committee.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast their vote. Motion passes with a total of 4 yea to 3 nay. Back on comments. All right, if there's no comments, then I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast their vote. Have received 7 yea votes. That motion does pass.